Shane, I'm an addict.
Amen.
Yeah, man, we're going to the NFL draft. It's crazy, right? It's talk about life beyond your wildest dreams. For me, it was just having the obsession relieved and not wanting to get high anymore. And, took me a long time to realize that one of my first spiritual awakenings was having the obsession relieved, not want to get high anymore. So 1, 2, 3 in sponsorship. I love Gold Coast. I think we're the best area in the country. The concentration of meetings right in this area, the convention speakers, we're so blessed to be able to, have this recovery. Because listen, if I were to go back home in New Jersey, right, or I'm from Trenton, there's a couple meetings in that area, right? I'll show up to a meeting. There's 2 people there, right? One person's high. Right, and it's not where else can I go on a Monday night and just probably I have a Canada, but there's maybe 50 or 60 people here. That's a blessing, and sometimes I could take it for granted and not realize how lucky we are. When I first came down here, I ripped off 18 months effortlessly, and I almost feel there's the Gold Coast is so concentrated with meetings, so you can almost get a year clean on accident down here, right? You can stay in halfway forever and be held accountable, really. You never have to leave halfway, There's a meeting on every corner. I lived by Sunshine, so I could walk to the meetings, right? It's so accessible, right? I ripped off 18 months clean by just coming to meetings, right? And what I found out was meeting makers just really make meetings. That's all they really do, right? I didn't have a sponsor. I would go to meetings. I would get the little service commitment, right? I would become the greeter, right? And after 18 months, right, I moved out of halfway, right? Thought I was good, right? Thought I was cured, right? I'm good, NA, right? Fuck your guys' hugs, I don't need you, right? And within a matter of 30 days, right, I'd relapsed, right? And in a matter of a couple months, I got a Lexus that I owned, right, with rims on it. I signed the title over. Right, the money was gone 24 hours. I got $600 for the car. Money was gone. Right, and I ended up homeless on Broward Boulevard, by the Walmart. And that's after 18 months clean. I couldn't believe where my addiction had taken me. Right, after having that amount of clean time, and this time when I came in, I had to get a sponsor. Right, we have the sponsorship pamphlet up here. If you don't know what sponsor is, or if you don't have a sponsor, definitely get one. It's probably one of the most important suggestions in this program. You can't work the steps without a sponsor, right? It says, who is a sponsor? An NA sponsor is a member of Narcotics Anonymous living a program of recovery, right? So how we live the program is how we practice the spiritual principles in our day-to-day lives, right? So I can maybe tell you that the spiritual principle behind 10, right, is perseverance. Okay, that's cool. But what does perseverance mean, right? It's only through understanding and applications that this program works, right? So if I don't know that perseverance means that we persevere through it, even if it's hard, we get through it, right, on the other side of it, how can I really, practice that? If I don't know what the spiritual principle means, right? So you want to find somebody who lives the program, right? Who you can kind of trust, right? Who's got a lot of clean time. I like to say that qualify your sponsor, right? You're interviewing them, right? So you ask them questions, right? It's not the other way around, right? You could choose anybody to be your sponsor, right? So it's crazy for me to say this, right? But do you work NA steps, right? We don't take people through another fellowship steps here, right? We don't do that here. This is NA. We work NA steps, right? Do they have an NA sponsor? Right? Who's their NA sponsor, right? Because ultimately how it was taught to them, that's how it's going to get taught to you, right? So if I could ask anybody, I equate it to sending applications out to when I was trying to go to college, right? I'm from Jersey, so, you could send your SAT score to 3 or 4 schools for free. All my schools were Princeton, Rutgers, Harvard, right? I wasn't sending them to Mercer County Community College. You know what I'm saying? I want the best possible education I can get, right? So why not try to work that as a sponsor too, right? Are they gonna have enough time, right? there's some people who, have a lot of sponsees, right? Like, are you going to be able to answer my call, right? I was talking to somebody the other day that, they were trying to call a sponsor and, he never picked up the phone. Like, come on. I sponsor a couple men now, right? I take sponsorship pretty seriously, right? I do the 30-day, call me for 30 days. And some people's they have a big ego and they're going to sponsor the whole fellowship, right? And they're going to be the Narcotics Anonymous MVP, right? And it's like passing around a stem with 30 people. Who's really getting the hit? If I can't get in touch with you, how you going to help me, if you never pick up the phone, you know what I'm saying? So it's important to make sure, are you going to have time for me? You know what I'm saying? This isn't some, okay, I'm going to call you once a week. And we're gonna go through the whole the song and dance and the motions and oh hey, how you doing? Is the sky blue today? Or I'm making spaghetti for dinner. Your intent, when I was calling my sponsor for 30 days, so I knew he worked from 11 to 7, right? So I wasn't gonna call him between those hours, right? And play the whole telephone game. I got my call in. I know you're at work. Now you gotta call me back or whatever. My intent was to build a relationship with him. And a certain kind of report to where I felt comfortable, when I had to share something with him, right? It says what does a sponsor do? A sponsor role is not that of a legal advisor, a banker, a parent, a marriage counselor, or a social worker. A sponsor is simply another act in recovery who is willing to share his or her journey through the 12 steps, right? Anything else you get is a bonus. I just started sponsoring, a kind of a pretty close friend, right? And I didn't know if that was going to be a conflict of interest, because we were close friends, and is there going to be a problem with me telling them, or hey, let's say if he relapses, or a problem I have is to where I don't let people in and get close because I don't want to get hurt, right? So now if I'm sponsoring him, right, and on top of it, he's already a close friend. What happens if he relapses? Or what happens if he's, doesn't want to work the program? Or am I going to have to be bro, what the fuck, man? This is the only way we stay clean is by working the steps, But I took him on and it's been a treat. And, it had really helped me with my selfishness. By nature, I'm an addict. I'm a selfish person, and I'm not a phone person. There's some people who try to call me just to call me and with no purpose behind it really, and that's not me. I'm saying call me for a reason. Call me if you have to tell me something. Call me. So the whole call me for 30 days thing, that's fucking was tough for me, right? But I picked up, because that's my obligation. I was obligated. I took on the commitment to sponsor him, and it has really become a joy, to see this kid grow. I think he just picked up 90 days, and a little bit of a backstory. We went on vacation, right? For my birthday, and the kid had said he'd relapsed, right? And I didn't know how bad it was, and it turned into him showing up to the flight rocked out of his mind, and then smoking crack in the bathroom on the plane 10,000 feet up to see him pick up 90 days. That's from ground zero. It's leaps and bounds. It's really, and for me to help him and guide him through that, really brings joy to my heart. It says we may worry that we are a burden to our sponsors and hesitate to contact them, or willing to believe our sponsors will want something in return for us, right? The calling for 30 days thing, I tell my sponsors, listen, I'm doing this because it was done for me. I don't want anything in return, right? It's not my ego saying oh, I'm sponsoring so-and-so now, or just pass it along, It says, how do we get a sponsor? To get a sponsor, all we need to do is ask, right? It is that simple, right? So you'd be surprised, if you don't have a sponsor, you're looking for a sponsor, raise your hand in this meeting and say you're looking for a sponsor, right? We'll get a meeting list going around for you of people who are willing to sponsor you, and you can call them and figure out who the best sponsor is for you. It also says that when should we get a sponsor? Most members consider it important to get a sponsor as soon as possible, right? Me, that's not my experience, right? I wouldn't like go to my very first meeting and see who has a ear clean when they raise their hand and be like, will you sponsor me? Like, no, like I want to get to know the person, right? If you think it's hard getting a sponsor, it's even harder breaking up with them, right? A lot of times it doesn't happen, right? It's ghost. And it goes on to say, while others explain that it's just as crucial to take a little more time to look around and make an informed decision, right? So that's what I did. Like I said, like I want the best possible sponsor for me, right? Like I said, like the sponsorship family was important, right? Like how they worked the steps were important, right? Who was their sponsor? Because right, that's how it was going to be told to me, was important. And like I didn't want to be like that person who like picked them out for their car or their shoes or what they're wearing or who they were hanging out with. Like the most important thing for me was like to have zero judgment. Like when I was gonna tell them something or share something with them, there was zero judgment. You know, like it was all love, or like me too, or like it's okay, or like I love you. Or like it's kind of like some fifth step stuff. Like we were going to fifth step, and like you know, like I was sharing him like my deepest and darkest secrets, right? And like it was just like, yo, I love you. It's all good, you know. So please get a sponsor. It's paramount. It's the only way you can work the steps. We'll go on to step 1. We have spiritual principles behind the certain steps. Step 1 is surrender, honesty, and acceptance, right? For me, the surrender part was huge, right? Because, like, listen, like, there had many times where I accepted and I was honest, I was an addict, right? Or tried to do it my way, or, like I said, like, come on white knuckling it, or, like, just try to get clean, like, in my bed or on the couch, right? It really wasn't until, like I surrendered to not, like, just, like, drugs, but, like, to the program of NA, right? The new way of life, the suggestions, getting a sponsor, making me in a day for 90 days, getting a home group, getting a commitment, right? It was a surrender to a new way of life. Because so many times to where like, I just tried to do it myself or my way, like, and it didn't work. And then come to find out that like after having 30 or 60 or 90 days that like I just wasn't powerless over drugs, right? I was powerless over everything in my life, right? And like I like to talk about like where, you know, like I had ate everything that was in front of me, right? And I couldn't stop eating, and like I was eating ramen 2 or 3 at a clip, right? And I remember being halfway and they were like, yo, how long were you locked up for? I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, yo, all they eat in prison is ramen. And like, I was like, oh, I don't know, I really like it, you know? And like, cause I had never had ramen before. And, you know, like I ballooned up to like, I was like, I gained 60 pounds, right? Like I came down here, right? You know, as a drug addict, and like, I looked like a World War II Holocaust survivor. I was 150 pounds, soaking wet, you know? And like, I became this guy. And I remember like looking into the mirror one night and like, you know, we went out to eat and like we went to Burger Stop, great burgers, love them. And I remember getting up one night and like, you know, we paid and I went to go like suck it in and it wasn't sucking in. And I was like, damn, yo, like, holy shit. You know what I'm saying? Like growing up, I was always this athletic, good looking kid, basketball team, football team. And like, I remember like that night taking off my shirt, like brushing my teeth and like looking in the mirror. And I'm like, bro, like what, you got 2 years clean. What the fuck happened to you? Like, how'd you let yourself go like this? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's going on, you know? And like to find out, like, they're like, I was powerless over food, right? Like part of the reason why I love food is it's instant gratification, right? Once I eat, I instantly feel better, right? Just like the drugs, after I'm done fucking pigging out and stuff in my face, all that guilt, shame, remorse comes. And it's like, fuck, man, how'd I do this again, right? So like it wasn't till like where I started practicing surrender to food, right? To like, I lost 60 pounds, right? Like, I was in the fire academy. I almost ate myself out of the fire academy. It was crazy. Right, like it was wild, like it was wild, you know, and like so like once I started practicing surrender like that, you know, like I was able to like lose the weight, like, and I lost 60 pounds, and like, you know, like I changed my lifestyle of like eating and like, you know, like trying to work out, and like maybe that's some 8th and 9th step shit, but like, that's how I make amends to myself. It's treating my body right, and like I was a fast food dollar menu junkie. Every meal was fucking, you know, and now like I kind of like eat fruit. And like salad and shit, right? Like I take care of my body today, right? Like it's important. Like, I ate out trash cans for years, right? I was a pincushion, You know what I'm saying? Like I served, right? I would eat food off of people's plates before I took it back, and I would eat that garbage. You know what I'm saying? Like, so like it's kind of important today that like maybe like if I'm grateful for my life and I'm still alive, that like part of that's like maybe eating right a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Or like when I had to surrender, like I have a gambling addiction, right? Like I remember when Hard Rock opened up. They did the re-grand opening, and like the Kardashians were there, and like DJ Khaled was there, and like Pitbull, and I'm like, let's go check out the Hard Rock. You know, it's a lot of people there. You know, like I haven't had a gambling problem in a couple years. You know, it's like, well, bro, you were a drug addict, you had no money to gamble. You know what I'm saying? That's probably a reason. You know, and like, all right, let's go check it out. And you know, like with 18 months clean, I went and I took out $1,000 just to go check it out. And like people don't really take out $1,000 to go like look around, but and just like the disease, like how I'm using drugs starts off a little bit there. I love crap. I love the dice. A little bit there. I hit. All right, I'm up. I'm good. You know, like I got this under control. And then next thing you know, I'm with like some other people, and we're kind of like hanging out, and I can't resist. And like that money I won was gone. The 1,000 I was up I came with was gone, right? So now I'm taking out more money at the ATM. ATM won't let me take out more money. Then I realized that like they will let you take money out from the cage with your debit card, and you got like thumbprint, initial, sign, show your ID, social security card, and like there's no more money in my bank account now. I can't take out any more money. And like my ex was with me, and she's like crying watching all this happen, and I'm in the disease of active addiction right now. Right, I'm gambling. I'm in the grips. I can't stop. I got no control. Right, and I'm using clean. Right, fucked up spot to be in. She starts crying. You know, she's like, I don't even recognize you right now. Who are you? Type shit. You know, and I'm like, I was on autopilot, kind of like when you don't want to cop drugs, but you're driving, you're going to cop them anyway. You know, and you don't want to. Like that's why I was like taking money out and like, go wait in the car. If you don't got, this is my money. This is my money. I'm not taking no L. You know what I'm saying, right? And then like when it was all said and done, right, I got home and like I lost whatever that was. And how did I get here again? Right? 18 months clean, fucking broke. And like, I'm a saver. I'm smart with my money. I'm pretty good financially, right? No money, right? All that, I was embarrassed, right? All the guilt and shame came. I wanted to use, but like I had no money so I couldn't use, right? So like it was like, what the fuck, yo? You know, like I was in like a bad spot, right? And I made phone calls, right? I cleaned the house, right? I made something to eat, right? And eventually, like those feelings passed, right? And I woke up and it was a new day, right? But like I gotta realize that like I'm an addict, right? And like part of that is wanting more. Like I don't need to gamble. I have money, right? There's no, it says like, I think out of 6, if we're greedy, we're never satisfied, right? So like, at some point I just got to realize like, I'm an addict, and like greed is, I can do that with money. I can do that with food. I can do that with women. I can do that with cars. I can do that with clothes. I can do it with shoes. It's never going to be enough, right? I want the Sixers, the Phillies, and the Flyers, all of them win the championship on the same night while I'm splitting aces, while I'm rolling dice, while I'm eating a steak with lobster, right? And it's probably still not going to be enough, right? Or when that moment's over, I'm probably going to want it to happen again, right? So at some point, I got to realize, like, I'm just an addict, right? Or like something recently just happened, right? Like I have a sister who has 7 years clean, right? I also have another sister who's an addict in New Jersey, right? And she was down there for, recovery. And then like she realized, I guess she's not an addict anymore. And like that whole fucking thing, right? So like my parents are down here for Easter, right? They're down here for the weekend. We live together when they're down here, right? So like they're coming back. It's like their first day here. They're coming from the airport to like the condo, right? And they get a phone call saying that like my sister in Jersey, Megan, had got arrested with like 5 pounds of, she dates a drug dealer, hash. Who even fucking does hash anymore? Like that's like 70 shit, right? Come on. Guns, conspiracy charges, all kind of shit, like facing jail time. They didn't even get to the house yet. So like me, like I said, like I'm pretty good at like disconnecting and like, not letting people too close. Like I knew she's an addict, so like I really just don't talk to her because I know I'm going to get hurt. I know she's going to probably die one day, right? But like with my parents living in the same condo as me when they're down here, like that's projected, their feelings on me, kind of like my mom's crying, my dad wants to like drive to Jersey and like kill the kid, right? And like that, like you can't do that, you're gonna go to jail. That's okay, I'm fine with that. Like, and it was like really a tough week because like, like we didn't have any toilet paper and he started like taking it out on me. Like I became the punching bag, or like every time I walked into the kitchen, he had something to say, or, and it's just like, 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 again, step 8 and 9, I kind of realized, like, it's your kid. Like, I understand, I get it. It's okay. Like I don't have to lash out back because I know the pain he's going through right now. It's got to be tremendous. I would fucking flip out too, right? So like I was powerless over that situation, right? So like I'm powerless over all areas of my life. The only thing I can control is my actions, right? Like I can't control my feelings, right? Like my feelings will always be valid. I can't control the way I feel. It's the way I feel, right? But I can control how I act, right? And for me not to snap back at my dad or say something slick or say something smart, right? Because he's in pain. I'm his son. He doesn't want to lash out at me, right? He loves me. You guys are friends with me on Facebook. He loves me. I'm the favorite kid, right? I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Like they love me the most, right? I can do no wrong, right? But like so like I gotta understand that like like he could be going through a tough time, and anybody, I don't know how anybody is lives privately. So when they come here and they don't say hi to me, I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with that dude? Or he doesn't like me. Like, like I'm nobody, really. I'm just like an equal person, right? Like he doesn't have to say hi to me if he doesn't want to. Like that's not his, it's his choice. Yeah. And we move on to step 2, right, is hope. And that's the only spiritual principle I can give somebody, right? I remember, like I relapsed after 18 months. And I remember going to my first meeting, like when they took us, whatever, or I was in a facility. And like I remember seeing like the 30-day key tag picked up. I was like, oh my God, that's gonna take like forever, not even 30 days. Like, how am I gonna get there? You know what I'm saying? But there was like hope in that, right? That like, like these people were picking up key tags, right? And like it could be done. Or like as much as I wanna say like the medallions for me, when I pick up a medallion, right? And how selfish and self-centered I am, it's not. Right, it's for the people who have less time than us. Right, it's for the people who are struggling and are going through something. Right, that gives them hope. Right, it says that. This is one of my favorite lines of 2. Insanity is repeating the same mistake and expecting different results. Right. Well, what's repeating the same mistake and knowing the results of what's going to happen? Right, it's addiction. Right. I always thought that it had to be tangible, right? Like, a power greater than myself. Like, was God like some really old white dude from like Jerusalem, and you have 3 wise men, and you have gray hair, and he walked with a cane, and like this and that. Like, I had to like touch it and feel it, and like I had to see it. Like, like a power greater than myself. Drugs were a power greater than myself for a very long time. I did anything and everything for one more, right? Also, too, right, when I'm going and I'm copping, right, in the hood, and the jump out boys roll by me, right, in the undercover, and I duck down, oh, God, please, well, you. Who was I praying to in that point of time? Either consciously or subconsciously, right? Something else was out there that I thought that was going to get me out of it, power greater than myself, right? So now I come in here and want to say, like, no, or like, like, what was I doing in that situation? Let's see. It says the only suggested guidelines are that a power greater than ourselves, be loving, caring, and greater than ourselves, right? We talk to others. We talk and listen to others. We saw other people recovering, and they told us what worked for them. We began to see evidence of some power that could not fully be explained, right? Like a lot of times, for me, a power greater than myself is the literature, or an NA meeting, or another recovering addict, right? A lot of times, like my God, it shows up in coincidences, right? Or like, how did this work out like that? I can't believe like that just happened, or I was just thinking that, or like whatever you want to put in that box, right? Or like he speaks through other people, right? Or like when I hear something that I just need to hear that day, that's what I believe a power greater than myself is. And then we move on to step 3. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Faith is the Spirit's principle behind 3. It says, we do not have to be religious. Anyone can take this step. All that required is willingness. All that is essential is that we open the door to a power greater than ourselves, right? Our concept of God comes not from dogma, but what we believe and what works from us, right? I had to look dogma up. What does dogma mean, right? It means like not one opinion, not one authority, right? We can all have our own God, right? That can be our one authority, but it's not one single authority. It's not the same for everybody. It could be anything, right? The right to a God of your understanding is total without any catches, right? Like I said, I thought like it had to be tangible, or maybe like it was everyone had the same one, right? That's not the case, right? God could be anything you want to be, as long as it's loving, caring, and the power of greater than yourself. The word decision implies action. The decision is based on faith. We have only to believe that the miracle that we see working in lives of clean acts can happen to any act with the desire to change, right? Like when I came in here, I was like, man, like how, like what's the catch? Like what's going on? Like how? Like I couldn't believe that like this is a worldwide fellowship, right? After like being here for a year or two, and like people were recovering all over the world, right, and not using drugs, right? And it all started with just a desire to stay clean, right? Crazy. And like I said, like that was my first spiritual awakening. Like when I look back on it now, having the obsession, removed from my mind, right? And like I can live and enjoy life, right? Like I couldn't believe that like I could have fun in recovery, like the whole like spaghetti dinners and like bowling and like what like I love conventions. I love NA. When I picked up my like 18-month medallion, like I look back at it and like when I was sharing on it, like one like the realest things I said was like, I love NA. Like there was like no thought behind that. Like it was real. Like I have a passion for NA. NA saved my life. Like I said, like I was homeless, right? Here's some hope, right? I've taken like 6 vacations in the last like 2 years. Like that's crazy. I just got a passport. Me and Mark are going to the European Convention in fucking September. Like, and then I'm going to, after that, since I'm over there, Paris, London, Rome, right? We're going to see the pyramids in Cairo. Like, like, what the fuck? I was homeless on Broward Boulevard by the Walmart 3 years ago, eating that fucking garbage can, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? I just got back from a Utah trip. We hiked like 45 miles, right? We did 4 national parks in Utah. Like, I love nature. Like, I'm finding out, like, like what I like to do and like who I am, right? And like, I like today, like I love myself, right? Like after working like 7, right? Like, like I look in the mirror today, like I'm not some like scumbag, asshole, fiend, junkie, robbing people. Like, I love myself today. I equate it to like falling in love with that high school sweetheart, like back then, like your first true love. Like, I love myself today. Like of who I am. Like I'm a good person today. Like I don't try to cause intentional harm today. I've came leaps and bounds. Like I try to say like just be a little bit better every day. Just even if it's a half step, it doesn't have to be like a leap or like a gigantic hop and a skip. Like, like all those half steps add up. I got 3.5 years, almost 4 years clean, and all those half steps, I look back now and it feels like I'd walk from New Jersey. Like they all add up, they all count. I'm very grateful. Thank you for Caleb for asking me to speak. Like you're one of my favorite I have a lot of favorite speakers. You're one of my favorite speakers too. Like when I heard you speak at the 10, my jaw was dropped. I couldn't believe it. And I'm excited for Vegas, so thank you for letting me share. Yeah.